Yo, man, I am out of practice. I have not done this in a while, and I was watching the Canes, and they were getting on my nerves. So I decided, you know what, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna go live and redirect that energy because I can't take it. I can't take it. So, how is everybody doing this evening? It's great. It's wonderful to see y'all in here. It's a pretty good turnout. I didn't know. I was used to going to live at 3 o'clock, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna try something different. We're gonna do it at and it's 8. Later even more prime time. See what it gets us. I don't know. So I thank all you guys for coming and checking me out. I'm going to start. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened this week in Black History, and then I'm going to talk about some of the articles that we wrote, specifically the one about Robert F. Williams, because he's an interesting character, and I have another one that I wrote about the beef between not really beef, the feud between Dr. King and Malcolm X, and so we're gonna go take it from there. See where it gets us. Afterwards, I'm gonna answer the questions. See if you guys have anything you want to say to asking me. See where that gets us. See where that finds us. But right now, man, thank you guys, everybody here, Melody, Justin, Wale. I'm so glad that you guys are here with me today. And it's awesome, man. I'm so very appreciative of you guys coming to join us. So right off the bat, we're going to talk about this week in Black History. Recently I think it was yesterday, was the anniversary of the passing of Jackie Robinson. And of course, everybody knows about Jackie Robinson breaking baseball's color barrier, but the story behind it is actually really interesting because apparently Branch Rickey in I think it was 42, had started looking into the possibility of bringing Negro players in, and he had 3 or 4 different guys that he was looking into at the time. I mean, including Jackie Robinson, and all those guys ended up, I think for the most part, within the Dodgers organization, not long after Jackie Robinson was the first. But one of the things that settled on Jackie Robinson is because of his temperament and because he had military experience and because he was older. That's how they ended up settling on that he might be the best choice. Also, he hadn't been in the Negro Leagues all that long. He hadn't been in the Negro Leagues all that long, and I think the term he uses, he hadn't been in there long enough to be jaded or distorted by the Negro Leagues. And for the life of me, I can't understand what that means. I don't know what that means. But whatever, man. Whatever. So, but also, like when he was in the military, because he was part of the Black Panther Tank Battalion, and he was discharged because he got into an incident on the bus. The bus driver, even though the bus line was desegregated, the bus driver wanted him to sit at the back of the bus. He was like, I ain't doing that shit. I ain't doing that. And they tried to court martial him for it. And eventually, I'm not sure the military term for it, but he was found innocent. And hey. But he was found innocent. But that story, that idea that to push through it's one of the things that Branch Rickey liked. So when he brought him in for an interview, he wanted to see if he had the stuff. What could he deal with? What was coming? What's going to come his way when I bring you into the organization? And he said, I think Jackie Robinson talks about it afterwards. He mentions that he made him feel almost naked at the way that he came at him, the way that he was addressing him, the aggressively that he interviewed him to prepare him for what he was going to deal with. And still, like a part of me, when I listen to the story, I mean, of course he did. That's what you should do. But also, like, was all that really necessary? Was all that really necessary? Sorry. Was all that really necessary? Anyway, So he signed with the Dodgers. The contract was it was not anything out of the ordinary, except for it had a clause in it that basically said that he didn't owe, because he was with the Kansas City Monarchs at the time. He didn't owe the Kansas City Monarchs nothing. He didn't owe the Kansas City Monarchs nothing. And this simple clause opened the door for the wave of black players that would come afterwards into the major leagues away from the Negro leagues. It basically killed them. It was like the first nail in the coffin. The Civil Rights Act was the final nail, but this laid the groundwork for what was coming, because they were already migrating out for greener pastures in the major leagues. And then by the time you tell me that black people, I can go to any game, I go to a major league game, they never look back. And the Negro Leagues kind of mimic a lot of black institutions in the fact that they integration killed a lot of them. Killed them. They killed the Negro Leagues. It killed a lot of black resorts. When black people were able to go anywhere, we went anywhere, and we didn't look back to those resorts that we had been going for years. And on the flip side, those white folks, they weren't going. You weren't going to Idlewild, Michigan. You didn't even know it existed. So they just disappeared. Those places just disappeared. Negro Leagues, the resorts, those towns, those businesses that depended on that black dollar, they just didn't exist anymore. On the flip side, Jackie Robinson went on to have a Hall of Fame career, and initially, the players in the Negro League thought he was a plant. They thought that he was only called up because he was there to fail. That he was the guy that was like, hey, we tried these Negroes. See, they're not great. We did our best. Peace. That was the whole point, at least in their minds. Because when he was in Negro Leagues, he didn't like it. He used to clash with the players. They didn't understand why he was so popular, because he wasn't. I mean, he was okay, but he wasn't, Jackie Robinson that we know today. And he certainly wasn't Satchel Paige. He certainly wasn't Josh Gibson. They were like, if nothing else, Satchel Paige should be the first guy. He's the best. He's the best pitcher in the world. Satchel Paige would get his shot, but it would be afterwards. Of course, would be afterwards, and he was old. That kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. A little bit. What else? What else we got on deck for today? I hate looking back at my old tweets and my old stories. So yeah, 2 weeks ago, I wrote a story for my Substack about Robert F. Williams. I got a wonderful book recommendation about Free Dixie Radio, which was Robert F. Williams' radio station when he was in exile in Cuba. And the radio station was basically to inform. Yeah, exactly. Nick, another example. And I'm about to switch gears for a second. This is a great example because the Chitlin Circuit suffered from the exact same fate as the Negro Leagues. They were there despite, because of segregation. And the moment that barrier wasn't there, they just faded away. And one of the interesting things about the Chitlin Circuit is that it was like tiny little juke joints and church basements, but it also was like huge black clubs like the Apollo. Like you went where the money was, and you were playing, you was on the road, and some days you played large venues, and other days you were playing small juke joints. And that road was tough. It burnt a lot of people out, but a lot of the famous people, the people that we know, that we love, coming up in soul music and R&B, cut their teeth on the Chitlin Circuit. This is how you made your money, like James Brown, BB King, Ike and Tina Turner. Like that's where they got this. That's where they got their start, was coming up, hitting the road, playing these clubs that people don't, we don't even remember the names of. It's how you earn a living. And then one day, if you killed it, maybe you make it. Maybe you make it off. It was tough. It was tough for black artists, to make it back then, because uh if your song wasn't, if you didn't have the right look, if your song wasn't radio friendly, they take it and give it to someone else, and that would be that. And they take it, because a lot of them didn't have clauses in their contracts where they had control over their music after it was recorded. You know, if somebody else did a cover of your song, that you might get nothing. You might get nothing from it. This is why you see so many like Tutti Frutti and Daniel Boone and what's the one that Hound Dog, yeah, nothing but Hound Dog, and Elvis Presley. Like, they saw very little money from that. Matter of fact, Little Richard talks about what happened with Tutti Frutti and how he was hoping for residual, like a residual boost. Like, yeah, Daniel Boone's version was far more popular, but if people wanted you wanted the real version, the non-whitewash version, they'd still come and check me out, you know. So he would have people come in from there and come listen to his music as a secondary, you know. It's kind of like your parents giving you the censored version of an album, and then you finally get to listen to the uncensored version. You're like, it's a good day. This is a great day. This is completely different. My eyes have been opened. Yeah. Funny story. The only, and I'm dating myself, but the only album my parents ever barred me from owning was DMX. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. That's it. And it was only because my mom found out and Marilyn Manson was on it. It's like, that's the line. Like, let me tell you something. Marilyn Manson is not the worst, the least of your worries here. Have you heard DMX? You heard him? He's the crazy one. He's the crazy one. Matter of fact, after listening to the album, I didn't even, after I listened to that, I was like, what song was he on? I don't even remember him being there. Anyway, moving forward. So yeah, back to Robert F. Williams. Robert F. Williams, somebody gave me a recommendation for a book called Free Dixie Radio, which is about the life of Robert F. Williams and how he sparked a lot of the ideology that comes with the Black Power movement. And one of the things that I love is that Robert F. Williams is from my way. He is from North Carolina. He's from Monroe, which if you know from North Carolina, you know Monroe ain't like, nigga. Like, are you all right? So for you to have that mentality about armed resistance and self-reliance and doing our own thing, I can see how you could have that living in Monroe, North Carolina. And those ideals were passed down to him from his grandparents, from his grandparents to his grandfather, to his father, to him. You know, they used to have his grandfather in 1880 used to publish a newspaper that talked about how we were never going to go back to the way it was before Reconstruction. This was in 1880. Publishing papers. He used to keep a shotgun over the mantle. He told you they live by these ideals that we were never going back, and that you defend yourself and you work together and you have this communal, you know, we deal with things as a community, you know, and he lived like that. These are the things that he was brought up on. So when he became of age here in North Carolina, he became the president of the local chapter of NAACP and had one of the most militant chapters in the country. They had they call it the Black Power Resistance. It was basically a armed resistance that was there to protect people from the local Ku Klux Klan. They're here to protect you. And there were people that were members of that local chapter in the NAACP. And that chapter was so pissed them off so bad, the headquarters, that Thurgood Marshall was snitching on them to the feds. This is he basically told J. Edgar Hoover that they were, you know, this guy could be violent. This guy kind of pensioned the possibility that he could be violent. Now, granted, Robert Williams didn't find that out at the time. We didn't even find that out till after his death in 1993 that he was an informant. I don't know. I don't know what you would call it, but his basic idea is to attempt to try to insulate the NAACP, who he was a member of, and he also was for the Legal Defense Fund, which used to be under the NAACP and then broke off into its own separate wing. But he was here to try to protect the NAACP, and this guy, they felt like he was reckless, you know. Anyway, he wrote while he would get they would launch an investigation into him, try to get him on kidnapping charges. He would go into exile in Cuba. This is when he would start doing Free Dixie Radio, which would air in the United States, where he basically broadcast and talked about Black liberation. But he also wrote the book Negroes with Guns. All right. So Negroes with Guns would later be read by a young man by the name of Huey P. Newton. He would use the idea of Negroes with Guns as a basis for the Black Panthers. Like this was one of their ideas. I mean, they read a lot of books. They read Malcolm X's autobiography, Little Red Book by Mao Zedong, but Negroes with Guns was also, and you can see this in the way that they formed the early version of the Black Panthers, because initially they were called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and they would patrol the neighborhoods of Oakland, open carry to try to prevent Black brutality, police brutality. This was the idea. What's up, Smoot? What's up, Smoot? This is the homie. We used to work together. Thank you. For Black brutality. And granted, later on they would soften their stance because being a militant organization on the fringes of society was hard. It was hard to gain moderates. So after Huey went to jail, they would end up opening social programs and courting more female members in an attempt to soften their stance. And this is where you start getting the their words, the survival programs. Anyway, so Robert F. Williams is basically like the progenitor to the Black Power movement, and that ideas that we need to rely on ourselves because no one else is going to do it. And we need to look out for us because no one else will look out for us. And those ideas were picked up by the Panthers and ran with it, and they would also start to do things not only early on with self-defense, but later with social programs and helping out your local community and those ideas. And that's honestly something that I think we should get back to. That I can see the value in that in the community and helping each other and working with each other. So Robert F. Williams it's my guy, man. He's my new favorite. And if you're looking for a book recommendation, Free Dixie Radio, check it out. I think it's dope. I think you learn a lot about a great Black man. But anyway, we shall move on. We're moving on. How is everyone doing this evening? This is weird. It's dark outside. I haven't done this in nighttime really ever. And I have to confess, it's tough. It is tough for me to get on here. It's not that I don't like it. It's not that I don't like talking to you guys. When I get up here and I get to explain Black history to you guys, I love it. But it is rough before I get out here to try to hype myself up. Like, yo, you should probably get online and talk to the people. You probably talk to the people. I was like, ugh, So I have to fight with my own self, my own demons. I'm doing good. I have no complaints. No complaints. No complaints. No complaints for me. It's been good. I enjoyed this. I enjoy talking to you guys, even though like it's not like a whole lot of people watch these. Not a lot of people enjoy this, but the people that do, that did to come here and I get to talk to you guys. I appreciate every single comment and every person that comes and listens to me ramble on about Black history, because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I can fit this into this live format where it's just me to kind of talking to you guys and explaining things and explaining history. It's rough. And if you guys are on Substack, I can't see comments. StreamYard won't allow me to see comments. I can connect, I can stream, but I can't see anything coming back. It's one way. It's a one-way stream. So if you want to come here and join the chat, you can do so on my YouTube channel, White History. You ain't got to. You can stay at Substack. You can stay on Substack. It's okay. It's cool. Anyway, we're gonna move on. So the next thing I want to talk about, because I had an article come out, and this article came together. Man, dude, nobody talking to you. Oh wow, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're here. I love that you're here, and I'm glad that you enjoy it. One of the things that's always important to me is just telling the stories as truthfully as possible. I don't want to sugarcoat things with people, so I tell the stories as they are, the people as they are. And if people don't, if you don't enjoy them, or you think that they're harsh, history. Once again, history is what it is. When I started this, that was one of the things that was important to me, was just telling these stories, as truthfully as possible. And honestly, I don't. There's no need to embellish our history, because I feel like, for the most part, we don't side the truth. Like, you'll find people here or there within our history. You're like, ugh, this dude, this person, this action that you maybe have questions about, or that you like, I probably would have done that way. I probably would have did this. But for the most part, I feel like we're on the right side of history. So I don't have to. There's no need to embellish when you're right. There's no need to embellish that when when you're right. So anyway, so we're going to move on. I'm going to talk about. I wrote this article about Malcolm X and Dr. King, and how that was different. And this started because I wrote a similar article about Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, and how they were in their beef throughout Black history. Now, granted, that was the early 20th century, and the feud with not really. Feud is too harsh. Ideological differences between Martin and Malcolm kind of mimic that, but I think that with Du Bois and Washington, it was a bit more personal than Malcolm and Martin. Malcolm and Martin's was more strictly ideological, and especially when you look at it because of their upbringings. And this is where they really have some correlation between the earlier Black leaders, because Martin and Du Bois both came from middle class upbringings, relatively middle class. Their life was stable, but this built this belief in the American dream, and the fact that if we educate them, they will understand the wrongness in their ways. Whereas Malcolm, because of how his hardship and how tough his upbringing was, very similar to Washington, they had completely different views. And granted, Washington wasn't nearly as militant, but he grew up enslaved. And he basically was preaching that if you give us, economic freedom, that we don't need right now. We don't need political freedom. We won't ask to vote if you allow us to basically be like this subclass of economics. And then we ingratiate ourselves so much into the world that at some point you're going to have to come to the table with us. You have to, because we're in everything. We're in everything. And Du Bois is like, that's stupid. Why would I do that? Why would I give him my ability to vote just so I could build wagon wheels? That's insanity. So they had beef. We had beef so much. So the Du Bois created a entire civil rights organization called the Niagara Movement, just based off of hatred. That is next level petty. You ever hated somebody so much you created a gang against them? Like we all hate this dude, all of us together, collectively. Yeah, and ironically, that group would go on to become the NAACP. So go figure. Anyway, this is not about them though. So they had, Malcolm, who studied Gandhi and worked with Bayard Rustin, and was early on wasn't really a pacifist. He had to be, talked into nonviolent protests by Bayard Rustin. Rustin was like, because after the Montgomery bus boycott, Martin wanted to apply for a handgun permit because it was crazy out here. It was crazy out here. Now, granted, he was turned down because we know why. And then Rustin came back because he wanted to see how the movement was going. How's it going? How you doing? And he claims that Martin had guns all over the house. Coretta says that they just had one. I don't know who's telling the truth, but I believe Coretta more than I believe Rustin. I think he was embellishing for a point. But to hear now is that after talking to him, after working with him, he felt like I shouldn't carry a weapon even for my own self-protection. That even carrying a gun to defend myself was too much in a nonviolent protest, that we needed to, that if I were to shoot someone, that would perpetually harm the movement. So I understand. I get the logically, but it's crazy talk. Malcolm, on the other hand, grew up completely different. He was from Omaha, Nebraska. He had it rough. His father was a member of Marcus Garvey's UNIA organization. He white supremacists burned down his house. They had to move. And then his father was killed in a streetcar accident. And granted, they never believed that he was, they know that the Klan killed him, but they couldn't prove it. And so they listed it as an accident. And his mother was so distraught that she ended up in a mental health facility, and his family was scattered to the wind. He ended up having to live with his sister. And you know the rest of the story if you've seen the movie, but he became a hustler. He became a hustler, went to prison, started corresponding with Elijah Muhammad. And when he came out, he helped grow the Nation of Islam. He was basically the main guy to help that explosion. They grew from about 600 members to about 50,000, at their height. Anyway, during that time, Malcolm and Martin were beefing. We weren't really beefing. I don't know how Martin felt, personally, but publicly he was saying, Malcolm was like, he felt like nonviolent resistance left Black people exposed. It left Black people vulnerable. It left them, I think his words was disarmed. And that it was unfair to us to give up the basic human rights to our basic human right to defend ourselves. He called the March on Washington, the Farce on Washington. During the Montgomery campaign, they had a part called the Children's Crusade, where they had, high schoolers, school-age kids marching. And he has this comment where he says that real men don't put their kids in the firing line, which at his worst, he called Martin and Uncle Tom. And even he ended up regretting that language. But after his falling out, and he basically was kicked out of the nation, but he also had ideological differences too. After finding out about Elijah Muhammad's penchant for young for young girls, he wasn't really feeling it. But he was basically kicked out, and they were on his neck. They were trying to kill him, you know. But he went to Mecca and had a change of heart. Martin went to Mecca. I mean, Malcolm went to Mecca and had a change of heart. And it was around this time that he met Dr. King. This is 1963. Was their first and only public meeting. They may have met before. They may have talked on the phone. I don't know. History books say they only met once. I'm giving you the story I got. They met once at Senate meetings about the civil rights bill, and they met, and it was super cordial. Cameras was flashing. They were like, they gonna come to blows. They thought because the media had been playing it up that they were at odds, and they were making Malcolm look super militant and making Martin look more moderate, and it really was no beef. They just had different, paths to the same victory. It's what they were believing in at the time. So they shake each other's hands, and he tells him, "Hey, now you're going to get investigated." That's what Malcolm tells Martin, and then they skedaddled. They went their separate ways. Ironically, Martin had been getting investigated by the FBI for years. He had been getting investigated since like 1953. Like I think he was getting investigated before Malcolm. Yeah, man, it's crazy. It was crazy out here on these streets, and they had plans to meet. They had plans to meet again. Like at that point, Malcolm was open to the idea of working with Martin again, and thought that this could be something amicable. But he didn't make it that far because he died in February of 1964. So, I often wonder what would have happened if they would have been able to work together. To say that they had a feud, I wouldn't call it a feud. I wouldn't even call it beef. They had ideological differences, but they were working towards the same path. They were both working towards the same goal. They just had different ways to get there, and most of that was because of their upbringing, and depending on how you view today, how you look at things today in 2025, maybe you view things a little bit more differently. Maybe you're a bit more militant, maybe you're not feeling turning the other cheek, because a lot of times these days the words of Martin Luther King get bastardized and turned into a bit of mythology. It's turned into someone that he's not, that he never was, because around that time after Malcolm's death, he became more and more, and the things that he was saying was a lot more like the things that Malcolm was saying. He started speaking out about after his I Have a Dream speech and the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act. He was like, that stuff was easy. You didn't have to do nothing. That cost you nothing. Matter of fact, some of y'all actually benefited. From financially from the Civil Rights Bill, because if you're McDonald's, you want people in New York to have the same experience that they have in Louisiana. That works for you, right? So, but when you start talking about like economic equality, that costs money. There's some real effort that needs to be put into that. When he talked about how it, in some respects, his dream had become a nightmare. This is just what he was talking about, because you guys want to come together in kumbaya, but economically, we make 10 cents of every dollar of our white counterparts. Why is that? This is the thing that he was trying to fix. So this afterwards, he would go in and start working towards Chicago, and that didn't go well. His campaigns in Chicago didn't really go well, and he would speak out about the Vietnam War. And I think, and ultimately, that's what ended up getting him assassinated. Was not his earlier talk or the earlier pre-1963 Malcolm. It was more, Martin. It was more of the things, speaking out of Vietnam, economic disparities, wanting money to be set aside for Black people to help uplift that community, to fix the things that you have broken, Malcolm X has this wonderful quote where he talks about if you stick a knife in 6 inches and then you pull it out 3, is that progress? If you pull it all the way out, is that progress? It's not until the wound is healed that we actually have progress. And you're not even admitting to have stabbed me. So this is a real fundamental. It's a problem. It's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a problem. But yeah, so yeah, I enjoy that story. I like talking about their bit of ideological differences, and you could go back and forth on their path and how things were differently, how you could look at things differently, and then how they both compare to Du Bois and Booker T. Washington in their view on Black people. Because if you look at Du Bois set the stage for a lot of the things that we see today, a lot of things we would see later in the 20th century with the modern civil rights movement. He was the one that ushered in that era of the new Negro, where we were like, yo, we're not going back. I'm not going to hang my head down. We're going to stand up tall, and we're going to fight for our rights, and we're going to do it publicly. This is what we're doing here. And that stuff led the way for a guy like Malcolm and Martin. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I am a huge Panther fan. Funny story. I worked at the stadium briefly for Tepper Sports and Entertainment, and it sucked. It sucked. It was not fun. It was not like you. What's that story about? The guy, and they made this is a Greek story where the guy had the sun made some wings, and he flew too close to the sun, and he burnt, and his wings melted, and he fell into the ocean. That was me. I was far too close to the sun. I'm too close to my idols. It's weird in here, and I see why they're dysfunctional. Granted, I didn't see a lot of the football side. This was before the football season, but I did see some of the business side. Man, this is how you run things. This is how you do. Y'all run things around here. That's weird. It is weird. I did not have a good time. So now that it's over, I am excited. I'm excited that it's over because I can enjoy the season in peace without hating my favorite team, because I have to go to work there 5 days a week, which was also another thing. 5 days a week. Anyway, so yes, I'm a huge Panther fan. We're going to win tomorrow in Buffalo, even though half of Buffalo's fans already live here in Charlotte. They here already. Like in my neighborhood right now, it's at least 4. It's about 4 or 5 of them up the street. I have to wave at them. I ain't even got a flag outside, but they sure let you know they Bills Mafia. Icarus, thank you, my guy. Hey, I know Black history. And sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I wonder. Anyway, I'm gonna open up for questions. If you guys have any questions for me, I think Ernie said something. I don't think that was a discussion for me. I think they might have been talking amongst themselves. So yeah, I'm gonna try to make this a bit more regular. I say this every single time. I am bad about this. But on the flip side of that, I have been putting out episodes regularly, and I have an episode last week about Black midwives that I was proud of. I knew it would struggle. It's okay. I think, to me, more importantly than whether or not a video does extremely well, is that so many stories get told, because you put them out there in the atmosphere, and maybe not today people will find value in them, but tomorrow or the next day. And I think that talking about Black midwives was really important, because especially in that time that they grew up in, because to talk about how recent that was, my wife's brother was birthed from a midwife. You know, they didn't go to the hospital. He's birthed at home. That's not that long. It's not that long ago that was a thing, and it was weird. It's so weird when you read the story because they talk about how the midwives were being pushed out from the medical establishment who wanted people to go to the hospitals and have things done by a medical physician, but we were also barred from a lot of hospitals and institutions. So what did you want? What did you want us to do? What did you want to? Thank you so much, man. I'm so glad that you're here. I love that you're here. Uh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I really appreciate that episode. I was like, I'm going to talk. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I wanted to do it once again as faithfully as possible. Oh, yeah, we're gonna win tomorrow. We're gonna win tomorrow. I think. I hope so. I got my fingers. I got my fingers crossed. I got my fingers crossed. So yeah, I wanted to highlight black midwives because they had this niche of society that never really gets talked about, even amongst us, even amongst the black community, but definitely not amongst the community at large. They definitely weren't talking about it. I mean, this wasn't just they didn't just deliver black babies; they delivered everybody. They would come if you lived out, you were rural, you were in the country. Maybe that midwife was the only person who would come, you know. Or a lot of times doctors would only come if you had money. You had to have money like on hand. Like I need that chiplets right now. If you don't have it, I'm not coming. That's crazy work. Like a baby, that baby don't care that about that. The baby it's gonna be here today. So yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It's wild. And before that, I think I did the story about the Chitlin Circuit, which I'm also really, really proud of. I enjoyed that one too because I felt like it's weird because to me, like I had always heard about the Chitlin Circuit. I was familiar with Chitlin Circuit for years. When I hadn't done a video on it, but I was familiar with it. But it's wild to me how a lot of people had no idea about its existence or their contribution to black music and how they paved the way for a lot of your favorite acts. And a lot of the acts that we grew up listening to started on the Chitlin Circuit and got there, and before they got their big break, BB King in like 1952 talks about working. I think it's 55, 52, 55, whatever, man. Working on Chitlin Circuit, how it was like, I think he said it's like a breath of fresh air, like being born again. I see it. I feel it. I get it. It's dope. It's really dope. Anyway, I'm not gonna hold you guys. It was fun. It was fun to get up here. I'm gonna make this way more. We're gonna do this more often. It's funny because I had stories. I had stuff to talk about. Stuff to talk about in the bank. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. And I ain't even doing nothing. I'm sitting here on the couch. So wrap this up. Thank y'all for coming out. I love you all. Thank you all. Thank you for your kind words. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And go Panthers, man. We're gonna win tomorrow. Peace.